I would love to go ahead and introduce Savannah and Ron here with us today from the Alzheimer's Association California Southland Chapter. And they will be talking about 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. So just Alzheimer's and other dementias, they cause changes in memory, thinking, and behavior that interfere with daily life. So today we'll be learning about 10 common warning signs and what to watch for in yourself and others. This presentation covers typical age-related changes, common warning signs of Alzheimer's, how to approach someone about memory concerns, early detection, the benefits of diagnosis and diagnostic processes, and Alzheimer's Association resources. Savannah and Ron, thank you so much for joining us today. I would hand it over to you guys. We're so excited to hear this presentation.
Thank you so much, Niambi, and thanks to ONEgeneration for having us. I am Savannah Levine. I'm the Program and Education Specialist for the Alzheimer's Association California Southland Chapter based in the San Fernando Regional Office. And yes, we're here for the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's today. And we have Ron Evans, who's a community educator, who's going to talk to you about this topic. And we're excited to answer any questions you may have at the end. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. And Savannah, if you'd bring up that first slide. Here it comes. And in fact, Niambi just reviewed this for you very eloquently. So yeah, we're going to be talking about age-related memory and the three areas that are affected: memory, thinking, and behavior changes. What are the common warning signs of Alzheimer's and dementia? And you'll learn a little bit about the difference between what is Alzheimer's and what is dementia as we go through. We're going to talk about tips as to how you might help somebody who's having memory challenges. And then we'll focus on the importance of early detection and benefits of getting a diagnosis, and talk about the kind of tests and procedures that doctors and specialists will take advantage of. And then Savannah will come back on and share information about the Alzheimer's Association. So we're going to focus on a family just for the purposes of illustration and explanation. Click on that for me. And our family consists of 3 people. First, there's Mary. She's 73 years old. I can identify with that, by the way. She lives alone. She obviously was very intelligent because she's a retired teacher, and she's always looked after her home. Her daughter Lydia, in the background there, is the oldest of Mary's 2 daughters, and she lives local, just a few miles away, so she gets to visit her mother frequently. The other daughter is out of state. Patricia, she works long hours. She's not able to visit as often as she likes. And I can identify with that because my mother is not even in this country. She's back in England. And Patricia primarily communicates with her sister a lot, but also with her mom. And they're actually using modern technology of texting. Let's go and see what they are texting about today. So Lydia is worried about mom. She keeps losing things. The house is a mess. So Patricia responds with, oh, it's probably just age. But no, it's not like her. Shouldn't we worry? Well, we just happen to have a good old friend, a good neighbor, Dr. Salloway. Let's hear what he has to talk about, because he is actually very much an expert in dementia and Alzheimer's.
As we get older, cognitive problems become more noticeable for almost everybody, and it can vary from person to person. Typically with age, people have trouble coming up with the word they want right when they want it. They have trouble remembering names, and they don't think quite as quickly. What's more concerning, or what might be the beginning of a memory problem, is people have a lot of trouble coming up with words or names, and it's happening more frequently, and the words or names don't necessarily come to them later. And then they start misplacing things, but not just once in a while, because we all misplace things, but more often. And it begins to interfere day to day. That should be a warning sign for people that this might be the beginning of a memory problem.
So Dr. Salloway talked about becoming forgetful, unable to think of words, for example, misplacing things. Forgetting words, not being able to come up with the right word affects one's communication. And we'll learn a little more about that. So that's the first of our warning signs. Let's go to the next video, next slide. And just go through each of these one after the other for me. Thank you.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. ALZ Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
It's important to know what the warning signs of Alzheimer's are and to be on the lookout. We know that we change over time, and the warning signs of Alzheimer's can be warning signs of a number of things, but when you see those in yourself or in someone you care about, it's important to check it out, to consult with a doctor, to find out what you're dealing with.
So Dr. Snyder began by giving us a bit of an overview there of the different types of dementia. So Alzheimer's is a disease that causes dementia, and dementia is the losing of our cognitive skills, decline in our memory ability, a decline in our thinking ability, and ultimately decline in a lot of our physical abilities, and also behavioral changes that are not typical of that person. Dr. Hartley gave us an inside look at what's going on in the brain and how it affects things, as well as the history of who Dr. Alzheimer was. And then Ruth talked about, if you see these warning signs, it's important to get them checked out. That means getting to a doctor and getting a diagnosis. We're going to focus on the 10 warning signs. Go to the next slide, Savannah. Thank you. So we have 10 warning signs typical. They don't pop up in exactly this order with everybody. They can pop up in different orders. So memory loss that disrupts daily life is the first one. And it's kind of easy to notice that somebody is becoming more forgetful, but is it because of the fact they're just getting elderly, or is it because they have in fact got dementia beginning to show itself? So if they're forgetting important dates or events, if they're asking the same question over and over again, or telling you the same thing over and over again, they are probably indications that it could well be. A person also becomes aware of the challenges themselves, and so they start relying on memory aids. They write things down into lists that perhaps they didn't used to. They may have post-it notes here, there, and everywhere, something that they didn't used to have. So what you're really looking for is, how is a person's memory and memory ability changing? If it's changing, it might be a cause for concern. But something that's typical is, yeah, we get older, we move slower, our brains are going slower, so we may forget appointments, forget names, but if we can remember them later, or if somebody's lost their keys and you hand them their keys and they know what they're for, it probably isn't dementia. But if they don't know what those keys are for, and they should know what they're for, now you have a pretty solid indication that it's not just a typical age-related change. Let's go to the next slide. So sign number 2 is they're beginning to develop challenges with planning and solving problems. Now, some people may experience changes in their ability to develop and formulate a plan or work with numbers, and that can mean that they are not doing so well with familiar things like recipes, keeping track of monthly bills and so on, and difficulty concentrating and taking just longer, much longer to complete something, like maybe typing an email. But making occasional errors when managing finances or household activities are concerned is probably just age related. But let's hear from somebody who actually has experienced this challenge.
I was probably spending 4 to 5 times more time preparing for something than I did, say, 5 or 10 years ago, because of I would lose my thought, I'd lose my focus, I'd get anxious, I wouldn't get to sleep. I was thinking this, I was in my sleep, I was thinking about what I was anxious about, which was I was trying to remember, which was I was trying to prepare, which I was trying to do. So it was really a vicious circle of, so I was able to control it a lot, so that people wouldn't see things and there weren't things to be seen. It's what was disturbing me was what effort I had to put into to do the things I used to do more easily.
So John, you may have noticed, was not suffering from Alzheimer's dementia, but from a different type of dementia, one of those that Dr. Snyder mentioned, which is Lewy body. So the Alzheimer's Association is there for people with all kinds, regardless of the cause of their dementia. We're there for them. So number 3 here on our list is people with dementia commonly have difficulty completing their daily tasks, driving to familiar locations, organizing grocery lists, even remembering how to play their favorite game. And for those of you hoping to get back into social activity when ONEgeneration is allowed to open its doors again and go back to normal programs, somebody who's really good at pinochle suddenly is not so good. They're starting to look confused or whatever it might be. That would probably be a strong indication of them having dementia challenges. Let's hear from an expert on this one, which is Ruth again.
Some people have difficulty with math or with reading in a way that's unusual to them. And once again, this is a change in that person. So for example, we all know somebody who was never able to balance their checkbook, right? So that wouldn't be a warning sign for them. But if somebody who always balanced their checkbook to the penny suddenly was paying bills, the same bill over and over, and not able to balance their finances, well, that would be a sign for them.
So Ruth, by the way, is a person that's available with her team 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. She's part of the team that staffs the helpline, which you can call at any particular time, and we'll hear about that later. So Ruth emphasized change is key. Okay, if a person couldn't play chess before and they are struggling now, it's probably not an indication. But if they were good at chess and now they're not so good at chess, they're being beaten by people that they used to beat, it's probably a a sign that warrants some concern. Not being able to balance your checkbook was the example that Ruth used. But occasionally needing help with things like new technology, like microwave, a new remote control for the TV or whatever it might be. Now, that might not be an indication of dementia, unless, of course, that person was always the electronic whiz, the technology person. Let's go to the next slide. And so this one, confusion with time or place. If any of you have seen a video, a film called Still Alice, this is explained or demonstrated very, very well in that particular movie. Alice was a professor, and she is standing up in front of a class of people, and she's talking about her favorite topic, and all of a sudden she freezes. She cannot remember what she has to say next. A little later in the video, she's out for a jog. She runs around the college campus, and she returns back to the main square in the college campus, and all of a sudden she is confused about where she is. Some of you may, if you have early stage dementia, may have encountered and experienced that. Now, losing track of what day it is, what month it is much more typical though. And it's one of those things that you might notice in a person. They forgot where they are, they forgot how they got there or why they're there. So if you get confused about which day of the week it is, but you look at the calendar and you work it out, you figure it out, that's not a problem. Unless, of course, it becomes so prevalent. Let's move to the next slide. And so now we are talking about things that impact your ability to do things like driving. And that is, and also reading, by the way, I should point out, it just not being able to see as clearly as you used to. But there is a cause of vision problems, several causes of vision problems that are common among elderly people that need to be checked out. As it says at the bottom, what is a typical age-related change? If you have cataracts developing, you don't see as clearly. You need to get checked out by your ophthalmologist and a referral to have cataract surgery if that's appropriate. But people who have vision problems for other reasons, including sign of dementia, can lead to difficulties with balance, trouble reading, of course, and distance issues, problems judging distance, judging color differentiation or contrast when you're driving can be really serious. So if there are any concerns, in fact, everyone should have an annual vision checkup. I happen to have a fairly close relationship with the DMV, California DMV that is, and so I know how important it is for people to keep their vision good, because when they get their driving license renewal, once they hit 70 something, they are going to have to do a vision test, and at that point a lot of people are having to prove that they can see clearly. They may have to go get new contacts or new glasses in order to pass the vision tests. So let's listen to another expert. Actually,
Alzheimer's disease is not just a disease of memory. It can affect other things too. It can affect the way that we perceive what we see. So sometimes somebody in the early stages of Alzheimer's might go to the eye doctor because they're having trouble seeing, and in fact, their vision is just fine, but the way they're perceiving what they're seeing may be difficult.
So I'm glad that I had Ruth help to explain that, which is the perception of what they're actually seeing can be actually altered in the brain, so to speak, so that they're not seeing the same as other people, and so they start having accidents and misjudging things. So new problems with words, with speaking or writing is number 6 here. And when people have that, then they start to have problems joining in conversation. they have problems following what's going on. Deafness, of course, can also be a contributor here, so that needs to be checked out. When a person, though, stops in the middle of a conversation and they have no idea how to continue, such as I referenced with still Alice, that's an indication of concern. Repeating themselves, they just said something, or they just asked a question. Maybe they just had lunch and they're asking, so when are we going to have lunch? Well, hang on a minute, you just had lunch. So those kind of things are a concern. A lot of people struggle with vocabulary. That means you can't find the right word at the right time. In part, it might be because your brain is slowing down. I've personally found that if I relax, those words that I can't find usually pop into my head. If I strain, they don't come into my head, but often they come into my head 10 minutes after I needed it, of course. And if they use the wrong name, an incorrect name for something that is familiar to them. Let's listen to Phil, though. He was challenged in this area.
The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, you know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
How many of you felt for Phil when he was struggling there, when he just froze? Yeah. Okay, let's go to number 7. Number 7 on our list is misplacing things, losing the ability to retrace the steps. Checking to see if a person is able to go back over where they were. When was the last time they had their glasses? When was the last time they had their keys? Or whatever it might be that they're misplacing is a test that we can apply. If they're able to retrace their steps, I remember I was in such and such a room, then I went into such and such a room. Oh, you know what? I also stopped off at the hall because somebody pushed something through the mailbox in the door, whatever it might be. And so they put whatever it was they were carrying down somewhere unusual. Now they go back to that location, they can find it. That's probably just an indication of typical age-related issues. But if they cannot find things, and more importantly, as it says, they start accusing others of stealing, who moved it? Somebody moved it. And then that's a very strong indication. And at this point, we start talking about getting you to the doctor to have an assessment. And we're going to listen to Ruth again, explaining this.
So some people wonder if, if they lose their keys or their glasses or their purse, is that a sign of Alzheimer's? And one thing that I would say about that is for most of us, we might misplace something, but then if we retrace our steps, we can usually find it. We can usually remember. For a person with Alzheimer's, sometimes they're not able to retrace their steps. Sometimes that memory is just gone. And so when they do find their keys next to the phone because they got interrupted by a phone call when they were coming in, they set their keys down in an unusual space. So there they are next to the phone. If that happened to you or me, we'd probably remember, oh yeah, the phone was ringing when I came in the door. I put down my keys. The person with Alzheimer's might not remember. They might wonder who's moving their keys around because they never put their keys by the phone. So that's just a little bit of a difference in some of the dynamics with losing things in Alzheimer's.
And so let's move on to number 8 on our list of 10. And go straight to the video for Teresa. Let's hear from her first.
The way I kept my house, I wouldn't say I was OCD, but pretty close to it. And all of a sudden, everything was okay with me. It's like, oh, it's a pile, I'm tired. So my dining room table usually looked like it was someone's office because I always would say I would do it tomorrow. And then my bedroom, as far as clothing, I would just put it in a corner, put it in a chair. And all of this is just, I wouldn't say it looked like I was a pet wreck, but really I was, because I never threw anything away. I always would say, I'll get to it, but I never did get to it. So just the way of my standard of living, it was actually decreasing.
So people with Alzheimer's may experience changes in judgment or decision making. And you heard from Teresa how she changed her perspective on what was okay and what was not. She changed from somebody that was really careful about everything to somebody who was, okay, I'll get to it later or whatever. So if you recognize that somebody is not looking after themselves, keeping themselves as clean and tidy, or maybe they're wearing inappropriate clothing for a particular time, season, and so forth, that's a concern. A big issue with elderly people is judgment about finances. So there's a lot of useful resources available from city attorney office, for example, about people who have got scammed, and we're always concerned about that. So recognizing that a person has got decreased judgment abilities is very, very important to making sure that they don't get caught out with anything going on out there. And with the internet, of course, we know everybody seems to have access. Everybody bad seems to have access to us all. So let's go to number 9. And this is the biggest one, and one that people at ONEgeneration can certainly recognize. When a person has suddenly stopped coming to the activities that they've typically been coming to. Is it because suddenly they've had an illness situation and they're stuck at home and not able to come out? Or is it because they're just withdrawn because they can't join in conversations, they can't play the games and the activities, social activities that they've always enjoyed? Maybe something as simple as also they have no more interest in trying to keep up with their football team, hockey team, or whatever it might be. They're not tuned into tennis when Wimbledon is on, but they always have been in the past. Those are clear indications of dementia. And if they have dropped out of family activities as well, you have to kind of wonder, is that just because it's age related and they don't like the loud music or whatever it might be, or is it something deeper? So let's go back and listen to Dr. Salloway on this one.
One of the most common changes and early on is the person's comfort zone shrinks a little bit, and then that gets worse throughout the course of the illness. So they're less comfortable going out, they're less motivated to do things than they were in the past. So there's some change in day-to-day functioning that way. I think people also lose confidence in their cognitive abilities because they may not recognize someone or know their name or find the right word, and they'll feel awkward, and they don't want people to notice that, so they feel more comfortable at home or in situations with family where they're very, very comfortable with that wouldn't concern them. So people tend to withdraw a little bit and be less outgoing. Can be one of the early signs of Alzheimer's.
So confidence and wanting to stay within your comfort zone, and that comfort zone becomes smaller and smaller, were two of the key things that Dr. Salloway just mentioned there. And he said it's one of the early signs, and that is true, because that was one of the earliest signs that we recognized in our family when my mother started to show signs of dementia. And let's go to number 10. Changes in mood and personality. And this typically happens later rather than sooner, but there's always exceptions to the rule. People living with dementia can have a mood change situation, which is different from what their close family, friends, and so on might be used to. A personality change even, that they might become confused and befuddled when in the past they were always clear thinkers. They can become suspicious and start acting in some strange ways. They can unfortunately become depressed, which is always a concern because that usually leads to withdrawal. They can become fearful and anxious, which in my family happened to my mother-in-law because of hallucinations. And as it turned out, in the end, it was nothing more than the fact that she was struggling with cataracts. And the important message here is that you have to get all the simple things checked out, everything checked out and eliminated before you accept the fact that it is Alzheimer's, because there are many, many causes of dementia symptoms, which are kind of, they're curable things, medication mix-ups, for example, and so on. So if a person gets easily upset at home or with friends, or whenever they're pushed outside of their comfort zone, but their comfort zone used to accommodate a lot more tolerance, now you see a change. So the key is looking for changes and recognizing that changes are happening. And so the changes are often noticed by people that don't live with the person, but that perhaps they socialize with on a weekly, a monthly basis, maybe at church or a senior center and so on. Let's go to Dr. Salloway again.
Another early sign of Alzheimer's or dementia is subtle changes in behavior. So all of a sudden, the family may notice the person is more easily irritated, or more impatient, or a little moody, or have a shorter fuse, or more anxious. Now, there's lots of things that can cause that, but often that can be an early symptom of Alzheimer's or go along with the early symptoms of memory loss.
So let's move on now to looking at where the family's at. Let's go back to the family here. So they are having another text conversation that we want to sneak and take a look at. So some information was sent from one sister to the other. Did you check out that information? I did. I don't know. Mom's showing a couple of signs, but not all the time. So Patricia, who is remote, found some information, sent it to Lydia, and Lydia was sent in to check that information against what she was seeing going on. And then she asked the question, how do we know if it's serious enough to see a doctor? So because they have a friendly doctor, they're going to go back to Dr. Salloway.
Memory is not all or none, especially when there are early symptoms or signs. So on a good day, people might function very well and not really even, no one notices there's a memory problem. But on other days, especially if they're tired, then things become more noticeable. So memory is variable. It's not all or none. And then there are different type of symptoms that develop for each person. So some people may have trouble with language, may have trouble with organizing themselves, may have trouble navigating while driving, and other people don't have the same symptoms. So you don't have to have every symptom of Alzheimer's to be concerned. And I think the most important thing is determining what has changed from that person's normal level of functioning. And usually people have a pretty keen sense of, what they can normally do well. And then when either they or the family notice that there has been some change from that usual pattern of functioning, that should be a warning sign to people, but they don't have to check off all the boxes.
So when a person doesn't seem to be the same person they used to be, and people are referring to them as, well, they weren't always like this, they always used to be something slightly different, that's the big sign, if you like. So these 10 signs that we've gone through are simply a guide that can help identify problems that are related to dementia, which could be caused by Alzheimer's disease. Individuals can experience one or more. Usually, there's a saying about two's company, three's a crowd. Probably true as far as signs of a person having cognitive decline is concerned. So if you do see signs, it's important that this person should visit their doctor. Move on to this next slide. And so early detection is really, really, really key. And going straight into the next slide, we're going to come back and have a look at here again from Dr. Salloway.
You know, it's a very interesting phenomenon that people who have memory problems are often less aware of it than family members or their friends who know them well. One of the reasons for that is our ability to monitor ourselves, which is an important part of brain function, decreases when we start having memory problems. Not in everybody, but commonly, and more than half the people with memory problems. And so the person is just not keeping track of the trouble they're having day to day. But the family members are, you know, if they're paying attention, they see, boy, this is starting to happen a lot, and the person's not aware of it. So the family's more aware, and they may talk to their loved one about it, and they say, you know, I've noticed you've been repeating yourself. And they say, I'm not repeating myself. And that could either be due to the fact that they're not aware of it, or they may not want to acknowledge it.
So Dr. Salloway just referenced denial. But let's listen to somebody who's actually living with a person that has dementia. Mary.
I was so adamant about what was happening to Daryl. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. And this wasn't the person that I know. This wasn't the person. Daryl was my husband was very, he always had to be building or designing or working with his hands. And it was getting to the point where he wasn't, and he was becoming very frustrated when he was forgetting to do things or go places.
And let's move on to the next slide. And so Mary was talking about the changes that she saw and realizing that things weren't as they used to be. So what do we do? What do you do if you notice changes in someone? So we have a 10-step approach here, which we're going to move through fairly quickly. The first step is to assess the situation. What changes in memory or thinking or behavior are you seeing? Go to number 2. And what else is going on? In other words, look beyond the obvious. Start taking notes, keeping notes. How often are these things happening? Number 3. And start learning about the signs and the benefits of early diagnosis. And the Alzheimer's Association is one of the resources available to help you learn about those signs and get our information, talk to our people, get the help you need. Let's go to 4. Has anyone else noticed the changes? Now, of course, here we're talking about you as a caregiver or a relative, a family member who is observing the situation. And who else is there that's seeing things? And are they seeing the same things? And encourage them to keep notes and share the notes with you. Let's go to number 5. And now you have to sit down, have a conversation with that person if they're not already actively engaged with their doctor. You've got to get them to acknowledge their concerns. That means you have to bring concerns to their attention. Not easy conversations, by the way. Number 6. And what's the best place, the best time? When is that person going to be most comfortable? Remember, they've probably got a shrinking comfort zone. And number 7 is what will you or that person who's leading the conversation have to say, and what will you expect them to be saying in response? Plan as best you can, in other words. So prepare and even rehearse if there's going to be 2 or 3 family members involved. You don't want to appear to be ganging up on somebody. Let's go to number 8. And make an offer to take the person to the doctor. Make it easy for them. Point out, in fact, you can start by asking, when is your next Medicare annual? Because they have an annual visit that's, you can say it's required, by the program, and certainly it's smart to take advantage of it. Help them get there, perhaps even suggest that when you've got that appointment set up, that you go to somewhere maybe close by, a park or somewhere, something that they might enjoy. If they open up the movies, take them to a movie, you know, just something to basically make it a day out rather than just a visit to the doctor day. Number 9 takes us to having multiple conversations. Not all things can be done on a single step, so be prepared for it to be an ongoing situation, because it will be. Because if it is Alzheimer's, dementia, or one of the others that are degenerative, which we cannot cure, unfortunately, their progress is going to continue to degrade as far as their abilities are concerned. Number 10 is use us. Use whoever you feel comfortable using for support. Do your research. Just because somebody says, I've had experience with a relative who had Alzheimer's, doesn't make them an expert necessarily for your particular case. But if you talk to the Alzheimer's Association, especially the 800 number, they will be able to provide you with information that can help you look at things from different perspectives and really get to understand. Not everyone has the same journey. We talk about everybody having a unique journey, and to all intents and purposes, it pretty much is. And sliding to our next slide. Yes, you've got to get them to the doctor, have them be prepared with the doctor. One of the things I suggest is that when you take them to the doctor, that you take all of their medications with you. Put all of their prescription meds in one Ziploc bag, put all their over-the-counter meds in another Ziploc bag, and any supplements and additives or whatever that they might be taking, put those in. Why? Because not every doctor knows all of the drugs and medications that a person is taking, because they may be being prescribed by different specialists. And specialists can be things like geriatricians, neurologists, the neuropsychologists, psychiatrists, and psychologists. All of these people are people that doctors, primary doctors, can refer to, and you should ask for referrals to get second opinions. So those were our 10 steps. And what are the benefits of early detection? Well, I'm going to have Ruth from our corporate office again share with you.
There are a number of benefits in early detection of Alzheimer's. For one thing, a person is able to have a voice in what happens next. They can make plans. They can live life more on their own terms. They can also make plans for the future, financial plans, care plans. They can let people know what they want, which can be a real gift later on. It also allows time for families to make plans and to make decisions about who can do what and figure out care and those kinds of issues. Also, the treatments that are available for Alzheimer's don't cure Alzheimer's. They don't slow down the disease, but they do help with symptoms. And it seems as though they tend to work better the earlier a person is able to use those. So that can help too. Some people are interested in clinical trials. Clinical trials allow people to have access to treatments that aren't available yet. And for some people, that can be a really important thing to pursue.
So I'm aware that we are running short on time, but getting a diagnosis is very important, and making sure that whatever the doctor recommends as far as second opinions, referrals, and testing, they should all be followed through without delay. Let's move to the next slide. And Once you've got to go into see the doctor for diagnosis, as I mentioned, you go prepared as you can be. Let's go to these two quick questions. Is this a true statement or a false statement? There is currently no way to diagnose Alzheimer's disease. Is that true? If anyone would like to type into the chat box, type a T or a F if you think it's a false statement. Okay, pick one of the two. Oh, somebody's given us an F. Let's go with the F. So it's the right answer. Yes, there are a number of assessments and tests that make it possible for care professionals to diagnose Alzheimer's with a fairly high degree of certainty. And that's particularly true because of MRI scans with tracers that can be done today that 3 or 4 years ago weren't even available. And move to the next slide. And here's a kind of checklist of assessments that might be done. Some are done in the office with the doctor, and some require you to go for laboratory testing and so on. Let's go to the next slide. So a question here is, do dementia symptoms always result in a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia? Click on the slide and we'll see what happens here. So we got a text message, appointments have been going well and mum's okay with them. Do they think it's really dementia? Well, we're waiting for the diagnosis. Let's ask Dr. Salloway and see if it could be something different.
Someone could have high blood pressure that's out of control, or they might have a thyroid condition that's not regulated, or diabetes that's not right, or on a medication that actually can cause memory loss. Drinking too much alcohol can make memory worse. So there are a lot of factors that go into cognitive difficulty with aging that some of them can be remedied. And so we want to do everything we can to improve cognitive ability and quality of life.
So with that information, let's go straight to the next slide and see what the girls think with the information that they're going to get. They've been given information. Well, how did they go? I got your voicemail. I'll call you later, but the diagnosis is early stage Alzheimer's. And this is a dreaded response, but unfortunately it's reality for too many families. And so they were actually referred to the doctors, by the doctor to the Alzheimer's Association to get some free resources to learn how to handle things. And that's going to bring me to the point where I think I can hand back over to Savannah.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, so I'll go over some resources really quickly. We are the Alzheimer's Association. We do provide free care and support resources to all those affected by Alzheimer's and their caregivers, of course, all those affected, and we are a nationwide nonprofit. Just very briefly, we'll touch upon the mission. So we are the leading voluntary health organization in Alzheimer's care support and research. We are trying to eliminate the disease through the advancement of research and providing care and support for all those affected, and by reducing the risk of dementia through the promotion of brain health. And our vision is a world without Alzheimer's disease and all other dementia. Like Ron mentioned, we do support all other dementia as well. So just to briefly go over some of our care and support resources, we have our 24/7 helpline, which is at 800-272-3900 in over 200 languages. As Ron mentioned, we do have master clinicians on the other side who can answer questions about emotional support, the disease diagnosis, the progression of the disease, and it's for professionals, for those affected by the disease directly, of course, and their loved ones. We also have the website, which is alz.org. That's our national website. We have the alz.org/SoCal, which is our California Southland Chapter website, and you can get information there. We have a caregiver center. We have a center for those who are affected, a driving and safety center. So lots of good information there about the disease as well. And we're also in communities nationwide. Like I said, I'm part of the San Fernando Valley Regional Office. We do have regional offices located throughout the entire country. And we have local staff that are able to talk to you about any resources and referrals that you may need. And then alz.org/CRF, CRF stands for Community Resource Finder, is a way by zip code to find resources in your community. So whether it be an elder law attorney, a neurologist, in-home care, you're able to find it at alz.org/CRF. So let's talk about ways to join the fight. We're always looking for individuals to join our fight with us. You can volunteer with us in your local offices, whether it's as a program volunteer doing education or support group facilitation, or joining the local walk planning committee. So that's at alz.org/volunteer. We also have advocacy efforts that we do at the state and federal levels, alzimpact.org, and you're speaking out on behalf of all those who are affected by this disease and their caregivers. Very important work. Again, alzimpact.org. We also have Trial Match, and Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service that you can put your information into at alz.org/trialmatch. You can be a healthy volunteer or someone who's affected by the disease. We need individuals to help us with that research. So it's a very good way to get involved. We also have the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is in over 600 communities all over the country. It's our largest fundraiser to fight this disease, to raise awareness about the disease, as well as funds to support those free care support resources, as well as all the research that we do. We do have a local San Fernando Valley walk. You can find it at alz.org/walk. And of course, we have walks in many communities throughout the country. So at this time, we're gonna, we still have some time for questions. So Nyambi, if you want to help us, and we can see what's in the Q&A if there are any questions for us.
Such an amazing presentation. Like always, you guys are so amazing. And in the Q&A box, I do not have any questions. Would anyone like to possibly raise their hand? Via a button on the bottom part of the screen, you can raise your hand and I can allow you to ask our presenters a question verbally, or you can type it in the chat box, whatever is most comfortable for you. But yes, if you have any questions, feel free.
They all had questions, but they've all forgot them. As you go through this presentation, there's so much information. Yes, that's the thing. Use the website to look for information. You'll find this presentation given by somebody totally different on the website. If you dig through for training, just look for Alzheimer's and dementia as a starting point, and you can learn all about it. And you can call the 800 number and ask any specific questions that you may have. I will point out, because the question of what about medications, is there a cure yet, always gets asked. No, we don't have a cure, unfortunately. However, a huge step forward was accomplished just in the past month with the FDA approving a drug. Its full name is aducanumab, ADUCANUMAB. It has a proprietary name of ADUHELM, ADUHELM. So I'm thinking of short for adult help, but they changed it to an M instead of a P. It's been tested with early stage people who are only just beginning to show the symptoms, and it's been proved to be effective with them. Has not yet been tested with people with advanced cases of dementia, but if this works and the cost of it comes down, it could mean that a lot of people would no longer have to face it because we catch it early and it's effective. Prevention is much better than cure. Would you like to add anything to that, Savannah, or did I cover all the important issues?
Yeah, I think, it's a very important time in Alzheimer's research, as Ron mentioned. And I think we're just starting, we're at the tip of the iceberg right now when it comes to these treatments and developments. And it's just so important to continue to sort of raise awareness about the disease and how it affects everyone, because this treatment is going to help, like Ron said, those in the early stage, but the research that we continue to do will continue to help all those affected. So we just really need to continue to push the needle forward. That's our mission in all areas, but that early detection piece is going to be very key, specifically making sure that a lot of times in the past, doctors would diagnose just dementia, but as we sort of briefly covered, dementia is the umbrella term, but we need to get down to the actual diagnosis. What type of dementia is it? Is it Alzheimer's, which is the most common, or is it vascular, frontotemporal? And as these treatments come out, it's going to be more and more important to make sure that we get those accurate and early diagnoses to be able to offer the correct treatment. So I think that's a big effort that the Alzheimer's Association has had in the past and will definitely continue to have because of the developments that are happening on the ground. So please advocate for yourself and your loved ones to make sure that they do get that diagnosis, and don't put it off. It really is very important.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending this presentation for just 10 warning signs for Alzheimer's and other dementias with this amazing team, of course, from the Alzheimer's Association Southland Chapter. Savannah, Ron, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to hear from you guys. Thank you so much from ONEgeneration. And everyone, if you would not mind just staying online, we do have another presentation coming up shortly. It is about breast cancer from screening to treatment with City of Hope. So we will get started with that at 11. So if you want to take a quick break and come back, we will be here on this same link. You don't have to click on a different link. It's the same one. Just stay here and we will start soon.
Thank you so much, Niambi. Thank you, Ron. This has been an awesome opportunity to really get some critical information out to you all at ONEgeneration. So we're excited to continue to work with ONEgeneration as we are fighting this disease. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you, Niambi.
Thank you so much.
Take care.